Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Thursday. It is September the 11th, 2025, and today will be a bit of a somber show, I imagine. I don't think there's any way around it. We're 24 years after a fateful day for a lot of us. Those of us who are in my age bracket and older remember two planes hitting the World Trade Center, dropping buildings in New York, and the chaos and the insanity that fell afterwards, a nation that united behind potentially questionable conflicts. A bunch of men my age joined the military, went to war. And yesterday, a conservative American icon, someone who was unbelievably influential for just being the young age of 31 years old, who had the ear of the president, was shot and killed in Provo, Utah, or thereabouts. So that's a pretty sobering moment. It's also my brother's birthday. And so now there's a couple of things that tie this day together for me and will probably always be intertwined. Yesterday, we did a whole discussion about trust and about a low trust society. And some of that was hinged on a discussion that Charlie Kirk himself was pointing out, that if you can't sit on a bus in America, in one of our cities, and simply just ride home from work without having your throat slashed or your blood drained out on the floor of this public transportation, then there's something very, very wrong in our nation. And for that, he was referred to as a racist, and he was called out by folks on CNN, and he was pretty incensed. I've had not less than 3 or 4 people in my life that are pretty close to me tell me that today feels a lot like that same sickness that they felt 24 years ago when they watched what happened in New York. So that's kind of intense. That's an intense thing to get into. We're going to talk about some news coverage of it. I want to talk about really, really awful analysis. I want to also try to stay out of this as much as possible. But yesterday, a lawsuit dropped from the 5 folks that were fired from the FBI at the beginning of August. And there's information in that lawsuit, which I think I'm going to get into tomorrow. I don't think today is appropriate for it, but let me just kind of quickly throw it out there. The FBI director was asking people in the bureau to sue me, and he was looking for anyone to do that. And part of that plays into what I saw yesterday, this utterly incompetent law enforcement apparatus. The first thing that I thought when I saw this, because I immediately draw historical parallels, the first thing that I thought about what happened in Utah was that 2 years and 1 month ago, a old crippled man who could barely walk down to the end of his driveway was killed in a search warrant and an arrest warrant by that same FBI office that is now unable to run down Charlie Kirk's killer. That's probably not what they're best at doing anyway. But it's interesting because we're told that our law enforcement apparatus at the federal level is out there looking for threats. And if you've got an FBI that is fixated on people who put out a mean tweet somewhere, and it results in an old man who can barely make it down his driveway to get his mailbox emptied, shot and killed by FBI agents, and that same FBI can't find a threat before it happens, which I don't think they should. The argument is that pre-crime doesn't work, but they're unable to identify somebody who planned out an assassination of one of the friends of our current president and successfully execute that assassination and then slip away. What are we funding? And why are we allowing this intelligence apparatus to continue on like that? Yesterday, we saw Kash Patel, the FBI director, go out and do something I've never seen done. Not by anybody I've never seen a local sheriff's office do this, let alone the director of the FBI. They announced that they had the shooter in this assassination in custody. and an hour later retracted it and said, we interviewed the person and let them go because they had the wrong guy. If you guys don't realize what a level of incompetence that is, it's actually really stunning. So we've got a bunch of bad analysis. I'm going to give you what I think actually happened on there. I've watched all the videos. I've watched them in slow-mo. I was sick to my stomach most of yesterday thinking about what happened. It's not the first time I've seen somebody shot. It's not the first time that, I've had people shot and been right there with them. But it was the first time that I was sitting there and all I could see was his little girls, because I have little girls too. So that's what we're going to talk about, and that is incredibly heavy. And I wish I was in a better mood to introduce a new sponsor, because that's what we do here. We talk to you a little bit and we share information, and then we also use your attention span to introduce products, keep ourselves funded. This is a really good product. I will give you guys my best energetic read to it, but also give them a look, simply because that's what we're doing right now. And if it makes sense for you guys, then look into making this. The company's called Cove Pure. They've just jumped in with us. This is an unboxing video that you're seeing on the screen right now that I got my unit, and it is currently set up for my babies to use. They're using it for purified water in their bathroom. So I actually took it upstairs because we've got another unit that's downstairs. You wonder about government, the incapabilities that it has. We know they can't even fix potholes in your street, but you think they're going to get you safe drinking water? There's plenty of examples of this, whether it be Flint, Michigan, or when I was living on an Air Force base, and we found out that they had leached something like 50 million gallons of jet fuel into the water supply, and we were drinking it. There's all kinds of stuff in there, whether it be heavy lead, heavy metals, rust, etc. They also put in some kinds of poison, things people are worried about now, fluorides, and so on and so forth. It doesn't just change the taste, it can also change the way that it affects your health. So exposure to all these things can cause brain damage, can cause birth defects, can cause cancer. It's a long, drawn-out process. You guys can get involved right now and fix your drinking supply. If you don't use water filtration already, the taste is the big piece of it. The second piece of it is your health and our general distrust of government. It's also a survival tool, which you may or may not need. And I hope you don't, but you should be prepared anyway. Cove Pure is an obvious fix. It's also a really, really cool machine. I say that now a little bit less energetic than otherwise, but I was super excited when I got it. You guys can see on the screen that it gives you both boiling hot water, adjustable heat water. It gives you different sizes with a push of a button, which is awesome for your kids. If they happen to have, let's say, a 13-ounce water bottle like mine do, you can actually set a custom size, push a button, and they don't have to do anything. It makes them drink water. It makes them go out there and do that thing that they should be doing anyway and staying hydrated. And the machine itself is like a really attractive unit. You can see it on the screen right there. Pretty cool. Also the setup is very easy, which was a big deal to me. It probably took me 45 minutes to get the water filtration column that you guys see in the back there set up. I have a Berkey system, and it costs more than this Cove Pure unit does. Right now, you're going to get $200 off by going to covepure.com/Kyle. Again, covepure.com/Kyle. There is a link below. It will take you directly to the page. You should see my face on there, and then you guys can check out this unit. Again, most of these units will just give you filtration. This one gives you bulk water, cool water, hot water, lukewarm water, or room temperature, whatever you choose. If you want to just make an instant cup of coffee or tea, it's actually really great for that too. So check out their unit and, make sure that you guys are purifying water if you live in a place where you need it. Most of you guys know. If you've never tasted the difference, it's significant. All right, we're going to get into a pretty heavy show here. So let's do that right now. Here we go. It's tough on a day like today when you get into it. It's like we're gonna be talking about some really heavy subjects, and this distrust of the media is certainly a big piece of it. We've been listening to more and more increased and nastier rhetoric. I don't know how else you get away from it. It just continues to happen. I'm gonna play a couple of Charlie Kirk clips about why he did what he did, and what he did was go and talk to people. And I'll assess this just up front. I think that what I saw of his security posture was way too low, and maybe representative of somebody with a really good heart who was more trusting of humanity than I would be. His profile was incredibly high. Again, had the ear of the president, could pick up the phone. And at the same time, he went out and mixed it up with weirdos and people on college campuses. And he did so with a lot of humility. I think I only met Charlie Kirk for a few minutes one time at a Turning Point event. And this would have been back in December of 2022. And, he's a larger than life human being. He was 6'5", And he carries himself not like a guy who's 31 years old. He carries himself like someone who was in it. I mean, he was influencing presidents. He was influencing world events. Who does that at that age? How many of us had anything like that? Had the ability to walk in and command attention, and at the same time would sit down at a folding table and talk to legitimately just complete rando strangers. Here's some of him talking about why he did what he did.
I go around universities and have challenging conversations, and because that's what is so important to our country, is to find our disagreements respectfully, because when people stop talking, that's when violence happens.
I've never seen someone do this.
Well, it's a growing trend because people like me are facing violence, assaults, the left. Yes, the campus Antifa. I've been stormed out of restaurants. I've been assaulted publicly, multiple death threats.
Okay, so what's your goal in all this?
There's more people that agree with me than some people would actually believe, and they come out of the woodwork when I do stuff like this. We record all of it so that we put on the internet so people can see these ideas collide. When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens, because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
So he's talking about why he does what he does. And it rings really true for those of us that actually look at what our First Amendment and our Second Amendment mean. Yeah, we're supposed to be armed, and yeah, we're supposed to be able to stand up and enforce and keep the government back away from the rights that we are granted by God, but we have to defend them ourselves. But the first thing was always to talk, to have discourse, to be able to meet each other on an intellectual field as opposed to a field of battle. And Charlie Kirk did that, and he did it at a level that most people can't even fathom doing. First of all, it's very, very difficult to do what he did. So he was brilliant and very capable. But if you watch, he's also incredibly patient, which is not that common in young men. I know that. I was a young man, and I was full of a lot of piss and vinegar and rage, like everybody that I knew. We signed up for a military because we wanted to fight, and for what. You can't take away from the power of people who do it peacefully and have the discussion. Here he's talking to some gal, and he always got to know, he always asked what their name was. His technique was excellent. And whether it was a learned technique or whether it was inspired by God, which is just as likely as far as I can tell, his mind was very polished and his delivery was very good, but it seemed to come from something inside, which is, I genuinely want to know what you have to say. And I've watched him on discussions with teenagers who didn't know their ass from a hole in the ground, and with old crotchety liberals like Bill Maher. And I don't have the clip anymore. I have it from earlier. I just don't feel like playing it right now. But he's talking about weed and growing pot and whether or not he smokes or whether he drinks. And the things he said was immediately innate desire to find common ground. Because what he just said in that previous clip was, there are more people who agree with me than don't. And I think even more broadly, what it means is that we actually all tend to agree on more things than we don't. So for all the people that would have hated Charlie Kirk, they probably agreed with more of what he said than not. That we should raise our children in a certain way, that we should love them, that we should cherish them, that we should protect them, that we should take care of women in this society. Like all these things that the left claims that they actually, are angry about. They also tend to live that way because it's the way that people have been successful for thousands of years. Here's another conversation he has. Same thing, honing in on that requirement to talk lest something else happen.
I got a question.
Sure. What was your name again? I'm sorry.
I don't think I told you. My name's Mercury.
Nice to meet you.
Why are you here?
Okay, I've been asked that question a lot. First of all, that question should not even have to be asked, but when people stop talking, really bad stuff starts. When marriages stop talking, divorce happens. When civilizations stop talking, civil war ensues. When you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to want to commit violence against that group. What we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have reasonable disagreement where violence is not an option.
You think that's not emotional violence?
How is this? What is emotional violence, by the way? I don't know what that is.
It is harm intentionally perpetrated on another human being that is intentionally targeted at their emotional well-being.
Okay, so feelings mean nothing to me. Isn't why we had the First Amendment to try to push our boundaries and to hear things that might make you mildly uncomfortable?
This doesn't make me mildly uncomfortable.
Does it make you very uncomfortable?
It makes me angry.
And why? Why would it make you angry? Someone having a discussion with you, they don't agree with you. Well, like, under what circumstances do we think that human beings are all required to get along and agree on everything? I don't remember that America. It didn't used to exist. A lot of people didn't agree on things. They just didn't talk about the stuff they didn't agree on. They found out what they did and they focused in on those things. Some of you guys are mentioning some stuff. I saw this from Louder with Crowder, so I want to also share this before we get into some of the coverage of it, because I think the coverage was, I think it was enlightening and I think it was atrocious. This is something that apparently came from a DOJ Teams website, sort of updates coming out of the ATF. Again, Louder with Crowder broke this. You can see their watermark in the back end. I didn't mean to cut it out. I just had to crop it to fit into our screen here. And it says, on September 10th, 2025 at approximately 12:24 p.m., conservative political influencer Charlie Kirk was shot and killed in the Utah Valley University at Orem, Utah. Kirk was speaking at the university as part of the American Comeback Tour. Multiple Salt Lake City 1 and 3 agents responded immediately. The suspect fired one shot from an elevated position on a rooftop in an adjacent building. And the campus security and surveillance video show the suspect jumping off and fleeing the area on foot. ATF and other law enforcement found an older model imported Mauser 30-06 caliber bolt-action rifle wrapped in a towel in a wooded area near the campus. The location of the firearm appears to match the suspect's route of travel. The spent cartridge was still chambered in addition to 3 unspent rounds and a top-fed magazine. All cartridges had been engraved with wording on them expressing transgender and anti-fascist ideology. An emergency trace has been submitted. An ATF SLC has been working to generate leads by this trace. The firearm and ammunition have been taken by the FBI for DNA analysis and fingerprint impressions. Upon completion of the forensics, the firearm will be disassembled for additional importer information. Multiple people of interest have been contacted and detained because of eyewitness testimony and review of the video footage. Primary suspect has yet to be identified. ATF is assisting in the investigation with multiple other state, federal, local partners, and the case is co-led by FBI and the Utah SBI, which is their State Bureau of Investigation. So that's what the update was as of this morning, which is to say that it sounds like they are going to do their best to ID someone from a weapon system that they found. And that's unexpected, because yesterday, throughout all the coverage that I saw, there was no indication that there was anybody who knew what was going on, what kind of weapon system it was. But a 30-06 caliber is a high-power rifle. So here's what I saw happen on the videos. And I'm not going to play the videos, actually. I'm not going to play them at all. Okay. He was speaking. He dropped a microphone down to his lap. He sat back up, said something, put it back down. He was in the middle of the discussion about violence and potentially linking violence and transgender ideology. And that's when the round hit him, and it looks like it hit him square in the chest. For all the people that have seen all the videos, if you've never slowed down a video and seen impact and what it looks like, there's a couple things. First of all, John Solomon also said it, but there was apparently some kind of a body armor involved underneath his t-shirt, which makes some sense. It looks like it hit body armor. It looks like it hit center of mass near the chest, probably in the heart region. And then that penetrated and there was an exit wound that went out the neck. And I don't want to dwell on that too long, but 30-06 is going to go through soft armor, whether it's level 2, which is often what you wear under a t-shirt. That's to stop handguns and people who are up close. People also wear level 3A, which is what you usually wear when you're a law enforcement officer. That's what I used to have for my soft armor. It's flexible enough, but it's still pretty thick. It's not all that comfortable to wear for a long period of time, but you can penetrate that with almost every rifle from 5.56, your AR patterns, all the way up to like the serious and powerful hunting rifle. On top of that, you can have level 3, which can also be soft armor. And then you end up in like sort of like hard plates, which is not very common for people to wear. And it is pretty obvious when you wear hard plates underneath a t-shirt. And I think that probably would take away from the comfort and the likelihood of doing that debate. There are other types of like really, really high-end armor, but whatever it is, most will not stop a competent shooter with a 30-06 rifle. So that's what it looked like happen. I saw lots of people talking about headshots. I saw people talking about neck shots. I saw a bunch of different people. We're going to play some bad analysis of people discussing whether or not this was a professional assassin. I don't know what they mean by that, and I don't think any of you know what they mean by that. Do they mean like somebody who does killings for a living that gets paid on a regular basis to go and shoot people? And how many of those do you think happen? We have snipers in our military. We have snipers that are in our law enforcement agencies that are capable of doing stuff like this. This is not a difficult shot. 200 yards with a bolt action rifle that's able to throw a 30-06 caliber round. That's a zero. That's where you zero. That's what your deer rifle is zeroed at. One of my buddies was telling me when he was 18 years old, he got his first deer rifle and he shot 3 rounds inside of a quarter at 100 yards, or at 200 yards rather, with a 300 Win Mag. This is not difficult. I had a 300 Win Mag and I wasn't a very good shooter when I was early on in my 20s. And I used to shoot targets that were, chest size out to 800 yards. And it doesn't take a ton to do that if you don't have a lot of windage and you just Kentucky windage, you can put it on target as long as your scope's zeroed. So all that is to say, there's nothing that indicates that this needs to be a professional, especially if you're hearing, and we actually do believe this Louder with Crowder report coming from DOJ and ATF, if that's legitimate, professionals do not put engraved bullets with ideology and messages. In fact, professionals are not even going to use a rifle in an open area like that to go shoot anybody. That's absurd. I'm going to give you the press conference piece. This is first the governor of Utah. This is Spencer Cox, and he's talking about what he was doing on campus and what this country is about and why debate is so important. I think this is a good start, and we're going to kind of work through some of the coverage.
This is a dark day for our state. It's a tragic day for our nation. And I want to be very clear that this is a political assassination. We are celebrating 250 years of the founding of this great nation. That founding document, the Declaration of Independence, that this great experiment on which we embarked together 250 years ago, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights. The first one of those is life. And today, a life was taken. Charlie Kirk was first and foremost a husband and a dad to 2 young children. He was also very much politically involved, and that's why he was here on campus. Charlie believed in the power of free speech and debate to shape ideas and to persuade people. Historically, our university campuses in this nation and here in the state of Utah have been the place where truth and ideas are formulated and debated. And that's what he does. He comes on college campuses and he debates. That is foundational to the formation of our country, to our most basic constitutional rights. And when someone takes the life of a person because of their ideas or their ideals, then that very constitutional foundation is threatened.
People are going to have a lot of thoughts about this situation. I think that at least was the right way to approach the opening of this. I'm even seeing that our chat is debating whether or not this is an easy shot or whether it's not. Look, if you're not a shooter, if you don't shoot rifles all the time, probably should just sit it out. Whatever you've seen on movies is not real. Being able to lay down on the ground and shoot a rifle at 200 yards is legitimately child's play to the point where you can teach little children how to do it. 10-year-olds can make a 200-yard shot. They're not going to make that shot because they're not going to be up on that roof. But it shows what it shows. What we also saw yesterday was 2 sort of very, very obvious things that happened. Number one, our left-wing media rolled out a campaign of blaming the victim to the point where the lead headlines now are that Donald Trump wants to pounce on Democrats for their rhetoric. I will show you some combined video of a lot of this rhetoric that's been happening over the last 10 years. It has been insane. And then you also saw really bad analysis because people on the right want to try to immediately jump to something. I think Nick Freitas actually had the best take of all on all of these things. And what he said is that Charlie Kirk was killed because he was effective. The thing that he did was incredibly effective, and it didn't involve guns, and it didn't involve tactics, and it didn't involve tattoos or being a cool veteran bro or anything else. What he did was he talked to people with words that were incredibly powerful. And what we also saw is that a bunch of people who make a living talking about nonsense got up and obfuscated and muddied that water almost instantaneously to the point where there had to be this discussion about, do you have the right person? They couldn't even let the law enforcement process play out. And for me, as someone coming from that background, that's atrocious. I've never seen a national political figure get out and make a claim that they had to retract an hour later in an ongoing developing situation when no one made you do it. And so here's the question that happened at that same press conference, asking about a person of interest. As I said, there was a guy that was immediately detained on the grounds. I'm not going to show you that video either because apparently he wasn't involved in it. But they grabbed some guy who was saying things like, it was me, shoot me, kill me, etc. There are plenty of mentally ill people in the world. And that was one of the things that Charlie Kirk risked by going out in the public with such a high profile as he did. He would attract the wackos and the angry and the loony bin. And that's part of why he was so effective. They arrested one guy, and that was not the right guy. They took another guy into custody, and that was not the right guy. And now there's an ongoing manhunt. And as far as we know, they don't have that person. And as you heard from apparently the release this morning, they're tracking down the weapon system, and now you're looking at maybe an ideology. But again, all preliminary. None of these things are conclusive. The governor of Utah looks like he has to cover for the FBI director making a statement, because the FBI director made a claim prior to this press conference that they had in fact captured the actual shooter, and then he retracted it after this press conference. So now you've put the governor in a state where he has to make excuses, and he's being very specific. People are persons of interest until you actually have something conclusive and you're ready to charge them. And to do that on the same day, simply because you want a PR win, and I have a lot of indications that that's exactly what's going on at the national level, this is a truly unserious group of people that we have running, theoretically, the premier law enforcement agency. The FBI doesn't necessarily have a federal nexus in this. There's not necessarily a federal crime that takes place. Homicide, murder is a local crime. But on a regular basis, for things that are both emotional and things that are very important to the local area, you will find that the FBI, the ATF, the U.S. Marshal Service will add resources. They'll be part of a manhunt. They'll be part of a laboratory division if they needed investigative resources and they need a rush on something. They will add the computer exploitation technologies of CART or CAST, which are very specialized agents that learn how to do things like cell phone exploitation or how to do some geo-tracking and so on. They may be able to go and do those things at a level that the local police cannot, that the state police may not have resources. So they do this all the time. It's called a law enforcement assist. But what you don't do is go out and try to claim credit for something before it actually happened. So here you go. You had the FBI special agent in charge of the field office saying, we don't have anybody in custody. Kash Patel makes a tweet posting something that everybody now has to answer for. And now the governor has to backtrack that and try to save face for someone who made a completely unforced error in public.
The FBI director is posting that a suspect is in custody. I would just like clarification. Do you or do you not have a suspected shooter in custody?
We have a person of interest in custody that is being interviewed right now.
That is not George Zinn.
That is not George Zinn. That is correct.
Are you still searching or looking for another shooter or anybody else related to this?
Yes, we are actively looking for anyone and everyone who has any possible information relating to this shooting.
Can you tell us details about the suspect being taken into custody? Where? How long ago?
We cannot at this point, but we will get you that information when we can.
Is there believed to be a second individual involved in the shooting?
At this point, there is no information that would lead us to believe that there is a second person involved.
Can you guys talk about the possible shooting?
Do you want to talk about what we know there? Yeah.
The only information we have on the suspect, the possible shooter, is taken from closed-circuit TV here on campus. We do have that. We're analyzing it. But it is security camera footage, so you can kind of guess what the quality of that is. But we do know dressed in all dark clothing, but we don't have much better description other than that.
Where do you think the shot came from?
The shot came from here on campus, from a location at a fair
roof.
Potentially from a roof, yes. A longer distance shot from a roof.
All right, so that's what you got out of the press conference. And all of this is them having to basically backtrack because what? Because we have people that are in the administration that immediately were looking for a way to capitalize on PR. I don't know this for a fact. This is Kyle Serafin's opinion. Let me be real specific about this. But there was an immediate post under Kash Patel's personal account, which one of my guys flagged for me and sent over. And it was a picture of him and Charlie Kirk. And I can just picture the text message that he sent over to Erica Knight, his PR person. Hey, dig up a picture of me and Charlie together. And then it was like, Charlie Kirk was the best. Find a way to make it about us. There's a certain sort of sickness in that. Yesterday, I tweeted almost nothing. I sat and watched. I was sickened. My wife was in tears because this is a truly tragic scenario. Mostly what I did was think about his 2 young daughters. Because what else do you think about at a moment like that? You know, I had information about this happening before I saw it happen anywhere else. We could have been one of the leading breaks of the story, and I don't want to do that because that's not the kind of person that I care to be. I don't need to go out there and yell to be the first one, notice me. And I see people in this country that want to do that desperately. And then I see people that are saying the right thing. So this was Nick Freitas. This is a good message. This is a guy who's been to war. This is a Green Beret. He also understands politics. He also has a pretty good way with words that are very succinct. This is his favorite format, I think. And this resonated with me. This is one of the few things that I shared yesterday.
Let's get one thing straight. They didn't murder Charlie Kirk because he was an extremist or a fascist or a threat to democracy or inciting violence or any of the other reasons that they're now trying to put out on X and TikTok and everywhere else. They murdered him because he was effective. He was effective. The man made incredible arguments while at the same time always trying to seek out common humanity. He might have disagreed with arguments, but he didn't hate anyone. And they murdered him. That's what happened.
No coffee mug, which is his normal thing. No snarky comments, just a straightforward statement. I can get behind that, like I said, and I'm glad someone else made it so I didn't have to. It's also, like I said, you guys saw it too. I'm watching our chat, and you guys saw exactly how gross it was that so many people ran out to get their names and their faces. This is a picture of me. This is when I did my thing. The only people that I saw that were being truly honest about it seemed like the folks over at the Blaze. They had a long history. I spoke to Steve Baker last night. I don't think he'll feel betrayed for me saying that it took him all day before we ended up talking, and he was clearly emotional and in tears because Charlie Kirk went to bat for some J6ers, which you may not know. Directly went to the president, and directly went to the president about my friend Steve. So I'm really grateful for that, and ensured that Steve Baker was going to get a full pardon, that he was going to be safe from going to prison for being a journalist on January 6th. You don't know those things unless somebody tells you those things inside. And he didn't go out there and celebrate it. This is not a guy who went out there and posted, look at all these, look at the presidential text that I have, and look what I managed to get accomplished. I don't think I ever heard him claim credit for that. So we can claim credit for people who won't do that. This was the audio that they were working off around the time that press conference went on. This is stuff that I found online. One of the amazing things is the resources that we have. What we also saw yesterday was a complete death of the mainstream media, that they were hours and hours and hours behind what everybody knew in minutes by watching social media, but in particular watching X, which is a true testament to what Elon Musk's system has done in opening things up and allowing people. Yes, are there some horrific videos of death? There certainly were. And yet, nobody could say that it was being covered up. This also was something that was available because we have the ability to scan and listen to police scanners and radio frequencies from local emergencies. I used to do this when I was on the job. I used to actually listen to this wherever I was going. Before I got there, I would listen to what police traffic sounded like when I went to go do surveillance, so I knew what it was like. And that technology is groundbreaking for most of us because usually once it's transmitted, it's gone. And people were preserving it. Here's one.
I found the description you were looking for on the temporary for the mail. You ready for that? And on your notes, the description on the mail is all in black, long pants, black bag, aviator style sunglasses with a long gun. Information was given at 13:26. I found the description you were looking for on the temporary for the mail. You ready for that? And on your notes, the description on the mail is all in black, long pants, black bag,
There's more of this, but just so you guys get the sense, people were monitoring this in real time and sharing information, which is why we were so far ahead of whatever our news stream was. And so what they did is they filled it with hate, and they filled it with speculation, and they filled it with nonsense. I'm going to play you some of that because I think it's worth understanding. Yesterday's entire program was about us being in a post-trust society. And when you can't trust institutions to just give you news about breaking stories and not editorialize about what an awful person he was and how they thought he deserved it, which is essentially what I took from MSN coverage, from CNN was intermittent on it. There's plenty of people on the left that were being awful, but even just the main news sources, the Jen Psaki types, atrocious. So we're going to play some of that. Before we do, let me break over and talk about our sponsor, My Patriot Supply. I guess it's fitting in some ways. September is National Preparedness Month. We're sitting here on 9/11, remembering some of the things that happened then. It's a great time to ask yourself, do a sort of a self-check. You know, something happens nationally and interrupts our food supply, whether it be a COVID, whether it be an event in a city near you, something that disrupts stuff. How prepared are you? Do you have food for emergencies? Do you have water? Do you have the ability to filter it? What happens if you don't have power for a couple of days? Do you have requirements, a CPAP machine? Do you have medical that needs to be plugged in and needs a battery? If you need to check out that, if you want to make sure that you are prepared, everybody can probably get more prepared. Some of us are quite prepared already. One of the ways you can do it, mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. They've got a big deal going on right now, which is their Preparedness Month mega kit. It's a huge thing. It's basically like everything you need for a year. It's food for a year. So that's 6 months if you're a couple. There's water filtration. There's all kinds of other stuff, solar backup. I've got most of these things in my home as well. It's mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE. There's something like 90 different preparedness essentials that you can have. They're all bundled together, and they're going to give you $1,500 in free stuff added on top of all of it. Go check out the bundle if you guys aren't prepped. If you're looking for a one-shot option, it's just like a personal insurance policy. mypatriotsupply.com/KYLE, mypatriotsupply.com/Kyle. Link in the show description. You guys can scroll down and see that if you like as well. I want to play you what we knew immediately, because this is actually pretty telling too. This is
right up.
Yeah. This is video from on campus during the speech. That. And you're seeing a little bump on the top of the roof.
Just saying? Huh. He just ran from over, where's my finger? Well, from over there, ran in, and now he's right there.
That's not what a professional does, folks. An infill for a professional, you wouldn't see them running and skylighting themselves. All these arguments about a professional or not a professional, it's really goofy to me, because you wouldn't be seen on your infill, you wouldn't be seen in your exfil. People who have been to sniper school know that most of what sniping is, most of what that sniper school class is, it involves you moving into position and moving out of position. I think my buddy said move once, camouflage twice, move again, camouflage 3 times, move again, camouflage 5 times. All they do is blend and blend and blend. That's the majority of it. It's not shooting per se. The shooting part you can teach anyone to do. That's designated marksmanship stuff. So somebody who's a professional is not going to be seen coming in and out. And it's worth knowing that. Here's another video that you guys should check out. This was, if you look in the top corner, it's really, really hard to see it. I'm going to see if I can actually zoom in on this thing here. There's a moment when you can actually see up in the corner, there's somebody running across the rooftop. I'm looking at here on my own screen. They run across the rooftop. It's not clear. This is an incidental panning of the camera that caught it. There's a small figure that's right on the pane closest to me. Probably going to be impossible to see on a screen like this, but there's internet videos of this stuff. Somebody was caught running off there, which is why they know where the roof was as quick as they did. And the mainstream media was terrible. They had nothing. You've got guys who are former FBI special agents out there trying to get attention on Fox News. I don't know if this guy's paid or not paid. He's in a studio. This is someone called Stuart Kaplan. He goes out there and says last night on Jesse Waters that we're talking about this is a professional. What do they even mean by this? Has this guy ever investigated a professional assassination? Because I haven't. And I'll tell you this, if they were going to try to take somebody out in a professional way, if it was a nation state actor, you wouldn't know it was an assassination. That's the whole point. They would have poisoned a cheeseburger. They would have had a car crash that would have accidentally happened, and some semi would have just knocked into their convoy. There's a lot of ways that people get taken out professionally. Taking a shot in a open air, visible infill, visible exfil with an old Mauser with, ideology written on the on the bullets. That's not how you do something like this if they were trying to do it in a serious way. So for all the people that say it was the Jews or it was Israel, and I've seen all the crap that you guys have seen online, and a lot of it comes from this because people are looking for salacious clickbait garbage.
I think this assassination, different than the assassinated attempt back in Butler, Pennsylvania, was a very well planned, very well orchestrated plot that was put in motion days before, and this individual had a plan of escape to elude detection of being up on a rooftop, and also being able to evade and elude law enforcement after that shot was taken. When you take a look at what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, Crooks came onto the venue, he left the venue, he came back, he was questioned. I mean, it was really an amateur scenario. This assassination of Charlie Kirk, to me, is indicative of a professional hit. And I'm not so sure that we are going to quickly be able to apprehend this individual without some luck, hopefully.
When you say professional hit, what do you mean by that exactly? Do you mean one shot, one kill, escape, already planned and at large? It looks clean, yes, but could this be done by anybody with any sort of basic training?
Well, when you take a look at the video and you take a look at the venue and the spectators and how close they are to Charlie Kirk, and then you have that kind of like umbrella over him, that kind of tent, you have to know that this shooter had to be perched in a position with respect to being able to lay his sights perfectly, basically a headshot. And the shot that was taken to immediately incapacitate Charlie Kirk. And so this was not some amateur who just, got up on a rooftop because it was, what I consider spontaneous combustion. He got up this morning and decided he was going to do something crazy. This seems the earmark of a professional that got up onto this rooftop well in advance of the venue being occupied by the spectators.
There's no evidence of that. There's literally video of a guy saying he just ran up there and they're setting up. You know where he's going to be? He's going to be at the center of the amphitheater. There's a freaking amphitheater. It looks like a target focusing in the attention in the center. Nothing about what this man said makes any sense, and I'm confident that he's probably not a shooter, doesn't own rifles, doesn't understand that 200 yards is a chip shot, and they go out there and they put former FBI agent in the Chiron and act like somehow that guy's an expert. How many professional assassinations has he investigated? None, because it's not a thing the FBI does. Rarely do you see murder for hire cases. What does he mean by the word professional? Someone who knows how to pull the trigger? I'm a professional. Many of you are professionals when it comes to dealing with a firearm. If you have training and you've ever gotten paid to carry a gun, professional. Everybody in the military who had a gun, a professional. A lot of them are terrible. That guy's talking straight out of his butt cheeks. And all they're doing is playing into this like nonsense because it's Fox News. And so the theory is someone knows how to walk onto a roof and shoot in a place where someone's going to be with a rifle system that's designed to reach out to that. How many of you have taken a deer at 200 yards and never thought that it was exceptional? Did you know that you were professional? What about 800 yards? I know guys that take elk at 800 yards, that they will ethically pull the trigger at 800 yards because they know what they're doing with their weapon system. Now, they're not professionals. They're just decent hunters. And there are literally millions of people in America that can do that. All of you just found out that your capability of saying, hey, how would I get above somebody? How would I get onto a roof system? How would I use, let's say, Google Maps and do a quick little area recon? Does that make me a professional? The word professional should mean that you get paid to do it. It's absurd. It was across all the channels last night because what we want to do is keep your attention and do the it bleeds, it leads exceptional excitement. What if there's a professional assassin running around? Because everyone thinks that it's Jason Bourne because their knowledge of guns goes about as far as a movie. I'd be embarrassed for these people if I didn't I despise them. Here's another guy who probably doesn't own a weapon system. I mean, you guys have no idea how many people in law enforcement don't even own their own guns. The only guns they have are the ones that were given to them, that were issued to them. I've had guys that were FBI snipers, I kid you not, in my Albuquerque field office in the little Las Cruces division I was in, one of our snipers for the SWAT team, I keep putting in air quotes because it sounds so stupid. He was trained how to shoot. He was essentially like a designated marksman. So he knew how to pull the trigger. He couldn't even replace the trigger system in his own AR-15 that he brought in. And me and my buddy, who was actually a sniper, who was a USASOC sniper, who was an 18 Bravo and did it for the Army overseas, pulled triggers for a living. We're like, how do you not know how to change the trigger system in your own AR? Like, aren't you a sniper? It doesn't mean what they think it does. Here's Caitlin Collins and some old guy wearing a tie talking about professionals. Again, this was ongoing.
Obviously, there's a lot of questions about what's happening with this investigation right now, given what we are now hearing tonight, this update from the FBI director that they have released this person of interest who was in custody.
So it's been a fast-moving investigation, but also one with some false starts. Caitlin, you've got an individual who went to a rooftop dressed in dark clothing, found a sniper's perch, and made a very long shot, a single shot that resulted in this assassination. Reviewing security camera video, they found someone who had similar clothing, who was in the area. We don't know the full details of how they got from that video to that individual, and had that person in custody as a person of interest, and determined that in their belief this was not the shooter. That brings them back to square one. We refer to it as a manhunt, but you know, in the manhunt, as you and I most often talk about them, it's you know who the person is and you have a dragnet out searching for them. In this case, there is another person of interest, but that's again someone that they want to talk to, someone they want to investigate, but not someone that they have enough evidence on to charge right away.
A lot of words that mean absolutely nothing. Again, everybody wants to speculate. They don't know anything about what they're talking about. This guy has no particular active sources in law enforcement. What I did find out is that there's basically an all hands being called into the Utah field office because they're expecting some muckety mucks to come in. So they're going to turn this into a dog and pony show. For those of you that were in the military, you know what I'm talking about. Some general comes in to visit your base and everybody spruces up. And so you bring in all your cool guys and everybody puts their cool stuff on and they all look like the part. And this is how great we are. Yes, sir. Politicians and you know, brass come in and do a tour. So you put on the pony show. They're doing that right now. The FBI Salt Lake office is going to be doing that. How dumb is this? Here's the same guy talking about things. He's their chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst. This is shit analysis.
Well, I mean, one thing we also learned was that the gun wasn't recovered at the scene. So it sounds like he managed to do his pre-operational planning, find that spot, line it up where he thought, you know, his victim would be, take out Kirk with a single bullet, pack up the weapon, maybe break it down, put it into a smaller bag. If you get off that roof, you have access right to a parking lot where he could have easily gotten into a car and left. In the video canvas, what we don't know. Did they get a good image of him, or was it just the clothing? Were they able to get a license plate reader of a car leaving that took them to a name? But we know there's an individual about 25 years old who's in custody as that person of interest. But this is where it starts, not where it finishes. That means getting, as Evan pointed out, a search warrant for the house, a search warrant for the car. Do you then recover the gun? Can you match the...
Yeah, and apparently the gun was found almost immediately in the bushes. This search was going on. You could find this stuff on X. I found this yesterday. This is a woman who was videotaping a search happening near the campus right away. And at night, John Miller, their chief law enforcement analyst, who apparently has zero sourcing in the area, knows nothing about this stuff. Again, Steven Crowder got it this morning. They recovered an old weapon. He's claiming that they didn't. Why? Why are these people on TV talking about anything? This is theatrical nonsense. And again, all of this is about, can we sell advertisements on our program? Can we keep you interested with our bullshit, which is what we're just slinging here nonstop? And I'm going to get into the ugly part of it too, because of course they also fed the emotional need for people on the left to hate.
There are about 6 armed men in the backyard of a home right next to UVU campus. Apparently they are looking for another suspect. Maybe another suspect has not been apprehended, and they're actively searching. I'm at a home that is probably about right next to UVU. So
It's about a minute long. This woman does a better job reporting and commenting on what she's seeing than the people who are professionals, because at this point, honest people have a significant edge on paid liars. Paid liars look something like this.
And Charlie Kirk was speaking about controversial things, issues of religion, making a connection between being transgender and gun violence when the shot rang out. And according to eyewitnesses who were there in that outdoor courtyard, the police immediately grabbed someone, dragging him all the way down to the ground. This eyewitness described the suspect as an older man with white hair, a blue shirt, and the man was apparently, according to this eyewitness, yelling, "I'd do it again," after the authorities had already taken him into custody, Kira.
Yeah, and apparently that guy's name was something like George Zim, and he was someone that was well known in the area for being a little bit nutty, and he had had an investigation in 2013 for phoning in bomb threats, and he had nothing to do with it. He's completely out of it. He's just a guy that was angry walking around. So we saw that picture. I saw it too. I shared it, said this is the first clean picture I've seen of this guy. And the minute that somebody realized that, like, oh, he wasn't armed, they let him go, I delete it. Why? Because I don't need that crap. I don't need to share something false. The other guy who may or may not have been there from a long time ago, they said they got a 25-year-old. Like, none of these things actually ends up panning out. What does pan out, and this is some footage that they kept showing of the scene, is that people on the hard left, particularly MSNBC, had a field day with bringing up rage and anger that they couldn't contain because they didn't like Charlie Kirk. Again, because of what Nick Frieda said, he was effective. One of these commentators was actually fired over this. This woman's name is Katie Tur. We're going to be playing her in a second here. Katie Tur, interestingly enough, and I did not know this before this morning, is the daughter of someone called Zoe Tur. Many of you will remember that there was this famous video of a very large man with long hair who looks a lot like the "It's Ma'am" transgender guy from the game store. And Zoe Tur was famous for sitting in a side-by-side with Ben Shapiro, who looks like an absolute child next to this dude, and saying something like he wanted to squeeze his neck, and he was threatening violence against Ben Shapiro. That's this woman's father. So this woman is totally not biased. She's on MSNBC, so what will we expect? Here she is talking about her take on the events.
People are really upset, and they start lashing out online, and they start blaming others for what led up to this. I mean, we see it when Democrats are targeted. We see it when Republicans are targeted. And we're seeing it with this. Anna Paulina Luna, who's a representative from Florida, has put this out on X. She's blaming the Democrats. She's blaming the rhetoric the Democrats use calling Republicans fascist. She's saying, you are the hate. If you're in the FBI field office and you see this sort of stuff bubbling up online, how worried do you get about somebody taking up the cause of Charlie Kirk and lashing out on somebody who's seen as a Democrat or somebody who is a Democrat? People are.
The real concern she has is not for the family, not for the man who was shot while he was speaking peacefully. Her concern is how worried would the FBI be, and how investigative do they need to be into conservatives for the potential backlash? This is what Ben Shapiro always referred to as Republicans pounce as being the headline. Something bad happens. What if somebody reacts negatively back? Well, we've already seen what happens. Have we seen any targeted assassinations or shootings that have happened because of what happened to Donald Trump? Yesterday, I couldn't stop but think that on July the 13th of 2024, the door was cracked open to something really evil. And yesterday it was kicked wide open. And we're now exposed to whatever that darkness is. Because someone not only took a shot and killed somebody of national prominence, but also got away with it so far. Managed to escape the scene. It's one thing to say you were able to take a shot at the future president and you were killed on scene. It's quite another to know that there's a possibility that you walk away from it. And so the number of mentally ill and terrible ideas that have been out there festering on dark chats do I think that we should police those thoughts and people having discussions? I don't. What I think is that our federal government cannot protect us. It cannot do pre-crime. And the real danger is not the backlash that some Republican is going to do something dangerous or mean to Democrats. The danger for me is that our government is going to see this as an opportunity to take away more things, which is exactly what happened 24 years ago today. Our government looked out and saw an opportunity. A lot of people united in a common sentiment that we should not let this ever happen again. And in doing so, we're willing to surrender a bunch of our rights. And that's really scary to me. Here's some more ugly coverage.
After one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. The carjacking situation, he used that. And I know it's hard to predict the future, Mark, but you can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
Here's what I can imagine, because I'm just old enough to be aware of Ronald Reagan and to be able to go back and look and see what happened. Ronald Reagan ended up adding the Hughes Amendment and really destroying American firearms rights and back things like the Brady Bill, because he was shot and someone that he cared about was also shot. It turns out that the danger is not going to be to someone on the political left or some sort of invading army coming into Chicago or St. Louis or Provo, Utah, of all things. The odds are is that there's an instinct that exists within government as a whole that citizens that are armed are a threat in general to their capabilities and their mission. So liberty is usually the thing that's sacrificed. It's almost never going to be that there's going to be some wide-scale tyranny that's going to be a reaction to Democrat areas. This wasn't a Democrat area. This is a place where people own hunting rifles. And that makes me much more concerned. This is Matthew Dowd. He said early on, this is some of the early coverage before anyone knew what was going on. And he said it's possible that somebody was just celebrating. And some of the ugly things that he said resulted in his termination. As far as I can tell, he was terminated from his correspondent gig or his contributor post at MSNBC. We'll listen to this. Like I said, it was pervasive and it was all over the web yesterday. They didn't have anything to talk about, so they just drummed up outrage.
Which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Turning Point USA has confirmed that he was shot. And there are a number of videos.
All right, so that was very early on. This is Real America's Voice calling when they finally got confirmation. For those of us who saw the wound immediately, again, and I'm going to play you some John Solomon. John Solomon, as you guys know from watching this program, John Solomon has the direct ear of Kash Patel. They're buddies. The reason that I know John Solomon is because of Kash Patel, because of Dan Bongino. They connected me with him in the first place. I think he's a snake. I think he's a liar. He's been a liar to me personally. He seems to be someone who is more than happy to capitalize on someone else's misfortune. And I think what you'll see is he turns around and immediately makes this whole thing about him and his reporting and his reputation and the ability to burnish that. I think that's kind of gross. But his information is coming from people who are directly connected to the flow. Here's Real America's Voice announcing it. They go to, I think they have an appropriate coverage of it. I'm not playing anybody getting shot. Again, I will not make the argument to you visually that he was shot in the chest, but I've seen the video enough times to make me feel sick. And I feel very confident in that. Again, same thing that John Solomon says in a second. Let's start with, they confirmed that Charlie Kirk had passed yesterday on Real America's Voice.
Yeah, you got it. I'm going to look at our fearless leader, Rob Sigg, who is
looking at him,
pacing back and forth to tell us he's passed. Am I hearing this, control room?
It's right. It's Solomon put it up. It's on Just the News.
Oh, then it's they're reporting. John Solomon's reporting on Just the News that he's passed. Yes, is this what I'm hearing? Yes, can I get here?
I mean, yes.
Wow, right here, Rav, at this moment, guys. Let's go around the horn, Gene. You continue on the horrendous news that Charlie Kirk has passed.
Well, my prayers are for Erica, for her children, for his family. This is beyond devastating, Eric. I've known Charlie, as I said, since he was a child, running around, coming to conservative events.
You don't see a lot of emotion on major news networks regularly. The one thing that people almost universally agree on, it doesn't matter whether it was RAV's coverage or whether it was over at Fox or whether it was on Daily Wire or some of these others, is that Charlie Kirk was genuinely friends with a lot of people. I know a lot of people that work in this industry now, having done it for a couple of years. He was loved by these people because he saw them and he checked up on them and he kept up with them, and it wasn't just professional. And so you see this, there's a lot of emotion that took place. And then you see guys like this. And you tell me this isn't opportunistic. There's a possibility that this is my own personal bias coming into it, so I'm willing to admit that. But I'll let you guys make a decision. I've got some pictures or some video. This is John Solomon getting in the middle of it. Again, they went to his reporting first. Why was he the first one? Because that's who the FBI leaks to. He's the dedicated outlet. He's better than Julie Kelly now for them. And here he is on RAV on a panel discussion. He's going to go ahead and bring this up.
John, I want to make tonight about Charlie, obviously, but I do want to catch some of the details here for the audience. I just want to go back to what you said. Your belief or your information is that Charlie was wearing a vest and the bullet hit the vest and then ricocheted up into his neck. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, that's what they're investigating. Again, you start with what you think you see on video and you're looking at it. We'll learn more when they get to the forensics. The FBI lab will be there helping local authorities, but that's what I was told from a federal law enforcement officer, that's what happened. So that would mean the shooter was aiming for the body of mass, the center body of mass, and then the bullet just ricocheted up into the throat area. That's what I was told tonight. We'll see if that turns true. It's hard to tell from the video, so we don't know that. We are certain that the shooter was on a rooftop, and it was quite a ways away and was able to hit Charlie. And I think we're going to learn a lot more about that shooter, what motivated him, and if there are other perpetrators in this, we're going to learn more in the next few hours.
Yeah. John doesn't know much about guns either, it turns out. People don't wear hard plates under t-shirts. For those of you who think that may be the case, that's not what happens. There was some kind of a vest. I used to wear one when I was on surveillance. We used to wear level 2 armor. It would basically stop a handgun up to a certain size. It would stop 0 rifles. You were completely exposed to rifles. And the idea would be that if someone got up and personal with you and managed to get a shot off, you have something between you and the shooter of a handgun, and that most people would not be able to get a rifle close enough to you, so that wouldn't be the threat. That's why you have a security detail that's armed. When you watch the video, what you see is an impression that happens right about here. It's about where the heart sits. You know, the heart sits in your body about like this. If you guys imagine taking a fist and then putting it in your like right at your sort of solar plex, about what goes on. You've got blood vessels that run up, and it looks like it hits soft armor. The entire shirt puffs out from the armor being impacted, and then it penetrates that vest, whatever that soft armor was. And then once bullets get inside bodies, they do all kinds of wild things. And hitting bone makes them change trajectory radically and aggressively, especially once they've been slowed or they've been fragmented because they've hit Kevlar. Happens all the time. You know, getting shot, it goes through it, but once it hits there, anything can happen. And you've got significant blood vessels in this little area, like just below where you guys see the notch of your throat. You've got a subclavicular artery that runs over and becomes a brachial. You've got 2 carotids that go up. You have the aorta in there that ends up pumping to everything. Like, there's a lot of blood. And that's probably not survivable. When I saw it right away, it was like, that looked instantaneous. Not to mention that you have spinal column involvement if someone hits you center of mass. All right, here's more John Solomon talking about it. Again, he goes out there and teases things like he's got special sources. He wants to drop a little bit of salacious information. This all makes me really sick. Foreign intel. No, there's no reason for this to speculate. And again, he's directly speaking on behalf of guys from the FBI at the top because he's their mouthpiece right now. This is after the disastrous claim that they had the guy in custody and had to take it back an hour later.
And we all lost, no matter what side of the political aisle you're on, we lost something important in America today. But the case goes on, the investigation goes on. There's a lot of piecing of evidence together. We don't have a shooter tonight. We have a couple leads, a couple people that were released that probably aren't the shooter. There's a couple hot leads. There's a little bit of foreign intelligence. And I think over the next couple of days, we will learn a lot more, and hopefully we will bring to justice the evil person who did what they did to Charlie today.
Yeah, I hope so. I am hearing that they do have a couple of people of interest. That's the latest I heard from
That's correct.
Law enforcement. You're hearing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're both friends with Dan Bongino, and they're both friends with Kash Patel. So they're hearing exactly whatever the top says. Why are they the same people that didn't call out the guy for lying to the American people and trying to claim credit for something that's not real? I got a couple more clips here. I want to show rhetoric. I want to show where this stuff comes from. I've got a clip of Elizabeth Warren that I think is pretty telling. She was asked about this as well, and it's pretty nasty. Let's start with this little compilation here from, this is MSNBC.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator.
You know, there needs to be unrest in the streets for as long as there's unrest in our lives.
Enemies of the state.
Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless.
When they go low, we kick them.
How do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck?
The biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized up to the right.
I thought he should have punched him in the face. I said, even if you lost, he insulted your wife.
Yes.
He came down the escalator and called Mexicans rapists and murderers. He said, well, what do you think I should have done? I said, I think you should have punched him in the face and then gotten out of the race. You would have been a hero.
I'd like to punch him in the face. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Punch some people in the face!
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
They're still going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump, and that's a fact.
Look as his character is stabbed to death.
Where is John Wilkes Booth when you need him?
That's it right there. Pull it up.
I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
A Missouri state senator is under investigation by the Secret Service after saying she hopes President Trump is assassinated.
I will go and take Trump out tonight.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And sadly, the domestic enemies to our voting system and our honoring our Constitution are right at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not.
If you think we're rallying now, you ain't seen nothing yet.
There's tons of examples of the last 10 years. A lot of people with ugly, nasty, horrible rhetoric. A lot of it has been on the left. And what you can see is that the reaction has been almost entirely, as far as I can tell, when it comes to political violence and shootings, there are far more examples that come to my mind that are people on the left unhinged and deciding that violence is the answer, whether it be shooting at a congressional baseball game, whether it be shooting up a church, whether it be shooting at who is now the president. There's a bunch of examples where this seems like it's tolerated. And what you also see is that the people who own the most guns in this country, the people on the right that defend liberty and the Second Amendment, sort of the ability to keep and bear arms, you don't see it. You look at the majority of military veterans and people who have the actual understanding of what it takes to do violence. They're not the ones that are out there engaging in it. Maybe because they understand what the consequences are. Maybe because they've actually seen it, because it's not a video game to them. You don't see a ton of retired law enforcement and military. One of the things that I can't believe, and I continue to sit there and it's actually somewhat shocking, after all of the failures and the betrayals that the Biden administration got involved in, starting with the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan and then moving on and continuing to what was sort of insane, kicking out members of the military. We know how many members of the military end up going on and taking their own lives. People who are veterans. This is a serious problem. People who understand what violence is. And what you didn't see is anybody take a shot at Joe Biden during that time, despite the fact that that betrayal was blood on his hands against a lot of honorable service overseas. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how he managed to escape it, except that the one group seems to have a restraint and one does not. And then you got people like Liz Warren.
Oh, please. Right. Why don't you start with the President of the United States? Right? And every ugly meme he has posted and every ugly word.
Yeah. So it's always easy to blame Trump. It's Trump's fault that he got shot at. It's Trump's fault that we're in this place. When in doubt, blame the man who has actually been the target of violence, not the people who actually do the violence. And it's actually incredible they're playing like this cartoon role that they can't help.
In which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, I emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. That we don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about.
It could have been somebody who was shooting the gun off in celebration, was the claim that MSNBC had early on. It was a single round, and somebody hit the ground and died. Some people who are very young have some incredible insight into the world. Charlie Kirk was obviously one of those people. I've heard people describe him as being like a Billy Graham figure combined with Rush Limbaugh. His ability to communicate was incredible. I think that he had spent enough time, and he was clearly intellectually very, very gifted. So to be able to focus in on the problem and see what the solution looks like, there were people that talk about him being president. I never even thought about it, but of course, like, he's charismatic, he's tall, he's attractive, he's well-spoken, he connects with human beings. He seems to have a real genuine way of talking to people who he didn't even agree with, who hated him and didn't walk away hating him. So he had this discussion with Chad Prather here. And this is kind of an eerie premonition in some ways. So I want to share this with you too.
Perfect lead into the final question. Charlie Kirk presidency 15 years from now?
No. I mean,
so you sound like me in that regard. People are like, you need to run for something. I'm like, oh, no.
Well, look, I'm having way too much fun. I'm enjoying myself. But this is going to get really nasty. Everyone listen to this. I just hope you understand. Think of the nastiest moment in 2016. They are not going to let this guy get reelected without the most brutal, drawn-out fight. We're going to have the tech companies getting involved.
Yeah.
The media is going to get worse than ever. They're going to be taking down Twitter accounts left and right. They're going to be taking down videos on YouTube. They are going to be coming after us. They are going to be following us in the middle of the night. They're going to be breaking into our houses. You think I'm joking. They are going to be violent. That you will not be able to walk the streets of the MAGA hat without your physical health be put in jeopardy. And I hope it doesn't get that way. I hope that this clip gets unearthed and everything's like wonderful. I hope that the country comes together and we have a beautiful Unitarian healing moment in September.
Isn't that something? That clip's been unearthed, I guess. It's worth thinking about. And I think seeing the real danger that existed, it's when you think about the real problem that's existing right now, that we are currently in a state where that's as likely as not. Again, a year ago, the door got cracked open, and yesterday I think it got kicked open. I hope that it doesn't get any worse than that, but I don't think that anybody who's paying attention thinks that violence is done in this country, because you just showed an opportunity, and we showed an incompetence. I'll show you one last thing here, because I think this is pretty wild. Again, I brought it up earlier. This was immediately where my mind went. This is August 9th of 2023. 2023. This was 2 years and 1 month ago. Utah man suspected of threatening President Joe Biden shot and killed as the FBI served a warrant. It was in the same town. It was just down the street from where Charlie Kirk was shot. And I couldn't mix up the idea that a guy who had anti-Joe Biden sentiment online and was physically unable to do anything about it was shot and killed in his home. And then the alternative was that same FBI couldn't keep track of threats to a national political figure when he came and spoke in a public space. I don't necessarily credit them with having to protect a Charlie Kirk type figure. But I also would like it to be that our FBI doesn't get involved in shooting someone who doesn't have the ability to do anything about their simple words that they stated. The guy's name was Craig Robertson, and he was shot at 06:15 in the morning on a search warrant like the FBI loves to execute. In light of what Steve Baker reported on this week, talking about Catholics being monitored for their almost over-the-line type discussions, it does seem to be very one-sided. And so all of that is to say that the same organization that I blew the whistle on saying that they were targeting First Amendment liberties, the things that I think that the guys at Turning Point, that all the people there understood was a danger because they are a First Amendment-based organization, speaking is critical to being able to get the message out. We still have a federal law enforcement agency that's willing to go out there and police speech, but not to the point where it actually saves the lives of people on one side of the aisle. I keep talking to people who work domestic terrorism, and they keep saying the same thing. There are very, very few predicated investigations that focus on left-wing ideology being spoken. It's theoretically possible, but it doesn't happen. And that's why you saw Catholics arrested outside of abortion clinics for praying, but you didn't see anybody from Jane's Revenge that were arrested for firebombing pregnancy centers or going into churches and doing graffiti or killing a priest. The same things didn't happen. They didn't prevent those things. One side of the speech is unacceptable, and it turns out that it ends up being like this. We'll do more about this tomorrow because the current FBI director is also worried about free speech, and we have evidence of there that I would never have expected from people that I would have not expected to get it from. But sometimes when you find yourself in a post-partisan scenario, which is where I live right now, when you're post-partisan, the enemy of your enemy is not your friend, but they may be your temporary ally. And if it means that I have to join up with people who generally lean to the left and disagree with me about family and values and God and religion, because we all actually think that free speech is still important and that you should be able to do your job without politics, then so be it. And that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to end with a palate cleanse that's a kind of a tribute, I guess. If you're watching and you're still there, thanks for being part of the program. Thanks for sharing it if you would. Subscribe on YouTube, subscribe over on X. You can subscribe on Locals. This is our call-in show, so tonight I'll take your calls and we'll be able to talk about it. If you guys want the number, you got to be part of our Locals community, KyleSerafin.com. You can also be over a member on YouTube. You can be a member over on X. And for the subscribers on Rumble, we appreciate you guys as well. Check all those things out. Let's go back and let's shut this down with a tribute about kids and about what we should be looking for and the value and the sanctity of life, which I think is something that this country desperately needs right now. And this message was not something that Charlie Kirk was afraid of talking about.
What advice do you have for me as I move into adulthood in order to become a more informed and involved citizen?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. And I have hope thanks to people like you. How old are you again?
13.
13. Here's a couple things I want to encourage you to do. Learn something new every single day. And focus on what it means to be a good person and a person of strong character. Aristotle said that courage is the ultimate virtue. Without it, there are no other virtues. If people aren't courageous, you don't have honesty, you don't have justice, you don't have beauty, you don't have wonder. And so at age 13, I want you to commit yourself to a life of courage. Courage is doing the right thing when you don't know how it's going to work out. Courage is committing yourself to the correct course of action, regardless of the cost associated to it.
Every human being, I believe, is made in the image of the divine, is sacred, is unique, and if we get away from this principle as we have, we not only have moral degradation, we not only have the collapsing society around us, but it's bad for that being itself. That being itself is unique. That being has rights, and who are we to say, just because we're older, that we get to murder it? Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.